All right, when you pre-test.
Okay, so it has a plug right here that we removed.
Right.
We've hooked it up to a pump that's very similar to a pressure washer.
Hold on. That's that pump right over there?
It's like a pressure washer pump.
Right.
We can fill the line up here and the valve up here with water. And we're bringing it up to 240 pounds on the gauge over there. And we're holding it for 30 minutes.
Okay, and we're doing that right now.
Yes. And it tells you that where it's bolted together here, we've got gaskets. We've got gaskets here. We've got a gate valve, which is that guillotine gate valve right there.
All right.
And we've got gaskets down here. It came in 2 halves. We put the gaskets in, we cut them, we tighten it together, and we cut them again. And these end gaskets wrap around it and jam up to this gasket here.
Now, you don't use plumbing putty or anything like that,
Not
is it?
at all. It's all compression fit.
All right.
So, and it's a technology that's probably was in the 1800s when they did this, because rather than having a hydraulically driven tap,
Right.
they had a long bar and they would do it on a ratchet. And you'll see when we do the tap that we're going to use a hydraulic motor that fits here. This long shaft goes into the touches the pipe. We're going to turn it with this wherever my screw is, right there.
All right.
That's what's going to advance it. But actually, it's just like a saw that you're going to cut a bimetallic saw.
Right.
It has a centering bit, and just like you cut a hole in a doorknob or something like that. But what we're doing is we're cutting pipe. So you get the drill that goes in the center and holds the thing steady, and then a pipe is radius, so you're going to cut on the outside and go in and cut it out.
Right.
And so the end of the tip of the drill bit has a little metal retaining piece that when it goes through the pipe, it slings out. So when we cut all the way through, it'll grab it and pull it back out.
All right.
We don't want that piece to be stuck in the pipe
Right.
and cause a restriction.
Now, this test has been going on for about 10 minutes. Right now, everything's looking good.
10 or 15 minutes and it's really good right now.
All right.
And it's called a pre-test. It's a hydrostatic pre-test.
A hydrostatic pre-test. Now,
Meaning that we're testing with water. You can test with water or air. Air is a whole lot easier because if you get a leak on air, you put subsuds on it and it bubbles up.
all right.
You can't do anything but see it drip when you're testing with water.
So if this test isn't successful, we're going to see a drip.
Well, we'd have a leak somewhere and most likely it would be dripping. You saw when we first started, we had a leak right here.
Right.
We needed to tighten the bolts up. These are 1 5/16 nuts on there and bolt heads. And so sometimes it's hard to get them tight the first go round, and that's the reason you test it. Because if we had a leak when we tapped it and did not test it years ago, they did not test
Okay.
on the pre-test. And so when you tap it, then you would go to try to tighten it up. And if the gaskets were not able to tighten up and stop, then you had to cut the water off and fix the gaskets and put the valve back on or wherever it was leaking. So by doing the pre-test, it keeps you from interrupting the service so that you don't tap it into it and have a leak and still have to cut the water off.
So you learned all this over the 20 years that you've been doing this.
I started out with a cousin. I had been laid off from a job for a long time, and they did underground boring.
All right.
And so he told me that I made my living on like a commission salesman. I got a percentage of the labor that we charge to do this.
Right.
So I learned from someone else that showed me what to do, and then all towns have inspectors, or even private entities have inspectors that come out and will oversee the process that is put in and done correctly.
So today here in Pittsboro, we got Jeff Harris doing that.
That's correct. And there's also a DOT engineer, a DOT guy here also.
Yep, saw her out here too.
No,
So,
it's this other guy.
oh, there's another guy. There's 2 of them today.
Yes.
So I guess this part is real important, because if you don't get it right, you can have a
Yeah,
whole bunch of trouble down the road.
People will always say, wow, the tap didn't take long at all. Well, it's all in the setup.
Right.
You got to have a good test. And the contractor usually puts it on, but they paid us to do it because there's so many room for error when you're cutting and trimming the gaskets and putting it together. And this is all we do, where you take a contractor that may have done one 5 years ago. They may miss a step. We don't put saddles on and the valve on very often, but we will do it on when people ask us to do it. And he was because of the location, and if you had to cut the town off for a while, it would be really inconvenient.
Right.
He is paying us to install the tapping sleeve and valve is what it's called. And so, and we're also doing the tap. Typically we come up and start a test. Most of the places in North Carolina where we work, we test with air. And air is a whole lot easier, but all of them have a wraparound saddle.
Right.
This one happens to be a, what they call a full body, and is a ductile, just like the pipe is ductile.
Right.
It is a casted ductile saddle. And so you also have stainless steel wraparounds, and they've got in smaller diameters. They let you do that in Pittsboro. You use a stainless steel saddle.
Now, as all the pipe is laid down around the circle, are you going to have to come back and do some further testing, or is this is the main tap?
The contractor that will lay the pipe, okay, they're going to put a hole in a pipe. They're going to the pipe will be filled with water. They will put the amount of chlorine in there needed to be, and then by the AWWA, which is the American Water Works, has a national standard. You will fill it up, chlorinate it, or you're pressure testing, and then I guess chlorinate it. And then after it's chlorinated, they have to draw a sample and send to be sure that the sample is okay before they'll approve for it to be turned on to the rest of the system.
Gotcha. So you're kind of the hired gun
I'm just
for
a
tap.
guy.
Yeah, you're just a tap guy, but you must
treat-
be a good tap guy.
But they treat me like a daggone famous surgeon. He's here, because it's a very special, limited amount of people that do this, and thank goodness. And so we just went to Lumberton to core a hole in a manhole. We also cut round holes in manhole structures as well. And so we cut a 16-inch hole in a manhole next to a wet well, which is a pumping unit that pumps the sewer up and forces it to the next manhole, because most all sewer is gravity feed. But if you have a low spot, it runs into a well. The pumps pump it up to a gravity feed manhole. So we just went to Lumberton. So we do concrete coring primarily in manholes for sewer services, and we do municipal water main taps. And it either is a municipality like this town here, or it could be a private system. There's a lot of aqua systems in North Carolina, and we do some tapping for them and other people. But it's all governed by the American Water Works Association, which is the national standards. And the individual location can vary their rules as to what they need in their area. But you do have a national standard, and it's governed by the American Water Works Association.
Now, what's the most interesting job you've ever done?
I don't know. We just do water. It's not very glamorous, but it is important.
What do you mean it's not very glamorous? This is stuff kids dream of, digging holes and playing with water.
Yeah, we get the Forrest Gump syndrome. When you're in the ground, you never know what you're going to get when you're digging in the ground. Look, we had a pipe right here in the way.
Did you?
They couldn't identify it. There's a piece of pipe they took out.
Holy cow.
We came the other Friday, and the pipe was sitting right here. And so they said, we don't know what's got any water on it. I said, well, typically we take a 1/4-inch drill and drill into it. If you got water coming out of it, you put a repair band on it.
Right.
And if you have no water, then you know you can cut it out of the way.
So was there any water in that pipe?
I do not know. The contractor came on Wednesday, cut a slot in the top of it, had a repair band ready to put around that in case, because that was an older line.
Right.
They're running parallel. You never know if they're using it for more capacity as well, or if they are not using it any longer. And so this one was one that was not active. So they cut it out of the way, because it set about right here where the valve was. And there was not enough room for the valve on my equipment or to run the pipe once you, so they had to cut our banded. And if you go in old towns, all old towns started with 2-inch, and so we run into a lot of 2-inch galvanized.
Right.
And so one of the things you have to be careful about in the 2-inch galvanized is that you'll have one over across the street and it runs over here. Well, all these communication companies have made deals with these towns and they'll go along and cut both ends of it and use it for a conduit because the cost is so expensive to drill across and
Right.
put conduit in. And so if you see what you think's an old pipe, you need to cut a little bit of hole in there and stick a wire in there before you cut a $15,000 fiber.
Right, right. Well,
So-
there's not that much fiber in Pittsboro.
No, but I'm just saying,
But, yeah.
you do have to be careful of, you don't know what you got. And you could even have, it's not often, but we have had people that cut some 2-inch galvanized out of the way thinking it was old water line and it was gas line. So
Oh,
you
that
don't
makes
never-
sense. Now, you said you've dug up interesting things when you've been down there in that hole. Ever find any dead bodies?
No, but we went to Moorhead, right there where the Coast Guard cutter used to sit. It's been deployed somewhere else now, but it's probably a year and a half ago. And so they dug down and were replacing on a capital project right down there on the river in Wilmington, right downtown. And they were getting so much creosote up out of the water when the tide came up. And it came to find out in the 1800s, they had a creosote plant there that was creosoting poles and I don't know, maybe ship stuff and stuff
Right.
like that. And so it was interesting that all that creosote was still coming up out of the ground after all these years.
Wow.
And so for a while, they pumped it in a tank and took it to an environmental thing and it slowed up. But when the tide would come up, the creosote was terrible. But never, oh yeah, we worked at Fort Bragg.
Yeah.
And so the early water mains were wooden. And so they used, down there near the Iron Mike statue on Fort Bragg, and I guess Fort Bragg was back in the 20s was when they were starting out really, they had water mains that were made out of planks and had a 1/4-inch steel wire that ran around it holding it together.
And how well did those wooden planks, then it's like a
Well,
water
they
fight
stay-
getting ready to go
they
here.
stay- all of them were wooden before you came up with the this is ductile right here. You can tell by the alligator coarseness on the outside. But if it's slick, it's what they call pit steel.
Gotcha.
And so those were the earlier ones, but the ones before that were actually hey, I need that line. The ones with that were just logs that were drilled out and they were probably done in Connecticut because all your lays and all. All right. Need the wrench.
Come on, I got them on a roll. They're telling them to hurry up.
Yeah, but they did have wooden mains, and the way the wooden mains survive so good is they stay wet all the time.
Right.
And it's my understanding they dip whale grease and actually put on the tongue and groove. And
Now that's whale as in the animal, not as
Yeah.
I got you.
And so I need that line wrench. Where is it?
We need that line wrench. There it goes. Boom.
Thank you.
All right, look at that. Folks, you're not seeing this anywhere else but right here in Pittsboro. The Cat Man is telling you everything you ever want to know about water mains.
We were all on TV, and it was all on TV.
Well,
No, it was on the phone.
Melissa over there and Jeff can tell you where to find yourself. You got grandkids?
I've got one. He's going to be 11 months old on the 6th of...
Well, maybe next year you can show him a picture of his granddaddy working in a hole in Pittsboro.
How about that?